Today, I'm going to share something with you all. You may have not heard of it, and at this point, you may have no idea what I'm about to tell you all. But here's my declaration of the truth. My name is Sophia Jane Burke. Nice to meet you all. And I suffer from trichotillomania. Now, why start with the truth? It seems to me like we all try to hide from it. The truth can be ugly, uncomfortable, unfortunate, but we often don't have to face the truth. If we have a persistent problem, we can quietly slip our insecurity under the rug. We live in a world of quick fixes. We try to pretend that everything is hunky-dory so that we don't make ourselves or our peers uncomfortable. But pretending to be normal is what catches up to us in the end. The pretense of being normal is actually quite strange. As a society, I don't quite understand why we all expect one another to fit in, given that we're all so different. In a world where everyone has imperfections, we all expect perfection. So, in order to keep up with the Joneses and to maintain these societal norms, people will cope with their problems in unhealthy ways. Some folks will smoke cigarettes away from their families. Others will drink in private to gain the courage to be social. But for people with trichotillomania, the struggle to fit in is a lifetime of applying fake eyelashes, fake eyebrows, and fake hair. Recently, at the 2022 Oscars, a joke by Chris Rock made clear the lack of progress we've made towards this issue. He joked about Jada Pinkett Smith's bald head. We are not sympathetic to those who appear differently, those without hair. Trichotillomania, sometimes called trick, is a body-focused repetitive behavior. While the word contains a great many syllables, it also is a disorder that is fueled by a variety of emotional distresses. Mental Health America classifies it as an impulse-controlled disorder on the spectrum of OCD and part of a greater variety of body-focused repetitive behaviors. Some of Trick's symptoms include hair loss, loneliness, and daily life being affected by the disorder. Why loneliness? This is because so many people struggling with this disorder feel that they are the only ones, when in reality, 1 in 20 people suffer from body-focused repetitive behaviors. And there very well could be more, because they often go undiagnosed and are misrepresented as bad habits. There are many kinds of BFRBs, including trichophagia, which is the compulsion to bite or chew one's hair, dermatillomania, the compulsion to pick at the skin around your nails, on your face, or even on the insides of your cheeks. And one that you've all definitely run into before, onychophagia, the compulsion to bite one's nails. What all of these behaviors have in common is the chronic and overwhelming obsession to engage in the behavior. The results of this activity can lead to many negative reactions around the person struggling with this disorder. Obsessive hair pulling can lead to bald spots on the face, scalp, and other regions of the body, which naturally leads to the famed question: what happened to your hair? To avoid that, people like me will use the quick fixes. Eyebrow pencils, wigs, hair extensions, fake eyelashes, really, the list goes on. So, while I'm laying the truth out on the table, I guess it's important to put my story in the spotlight. I played soccer until I was 8 years old, and I played volleyball until I was 14. I also took up modeling when I was about 9 years old. In each of the photos I took, and for every job that I booked, my eyes were coated in eyeliner and my eyebrows were filled in. This is what my struggle with trichotillomania looked like as a child. I started pulling out my eyelashes and eyebrows in the 1st grade. I still remember a page of George Washington, the cherry tree, and the hatchet, covered in my own eyelashes as I removed them during class. Later, I would go on to obsessively pluck my eyebrows. I justified it by saying that the hair at the ends of my eyebrows and right where they started was simply extra hair. At the time, I saw nothing wrong with what I was doing. Until one day, I came home and my mother exclaimed, "Your eyebrows, what's happened to them?" It was at this point that I knew I didn't look normal. In the same way that my nail biting had led to shame from my family members and my teachers, my hair pulling was also something to be ashamed of. As time went on, I cannot even count the number of times I heard, "Just stop. It's a bad habit." It felt like the more pressure I had to stop, the more I couldn't. And then I began high school. High schools are already a difficult place to have a healthy self-esteem. And on top of that, freshman Sophia didn't have parts of her eyebrows. So naturally, my trichotillomania made me feel really alone. I was lucky to have really close friends from the start, but they didn't know that I was suffering from this disorder until much later on. I thought it was important to keep it a secret. I felt shameful and feared that my classmates would find it gross. Trich made me feel like I wasn't in charge of my own life when everyone else was. So, I tried my best to hide it. That shame, pressure, and low self-esteem grew, and eventually, so did my trichotillomania. Boy, if I could describe to you all the first time I pulled a hair from my scalp, I remember thinking to myself, if I pull from here, nobody will know. I just wanted to be normal and continue to sweep my problem under the rug, yet the repetition of pulling caused consequence. I took a photo of my scalp halfway through freshman year and began to realize that the very behavior I thought would hide my disorder had only made it more obvious. Over the years, I would garner a collection of photos as the consequences of my trich became more and more obvious. Alongside the hair loss, I developed many coping strategies to try to cover my missing hair. I tried my best to fit in, and to my knowledge, I did so somewhat successfully. I never had to confront the truth that I was losing my hair or how much hair I was losing, because as long as no one else around me could see it, I didn't have to. It was only until this winter, after I transitioned from wearing hair extensions to covering up with wigs, that I wasn't able to hide my trichotillomania. As a part of the wrestling team, I knew that I couldn't wear my wig during practices and matches. As a result, my entire school would see. For a long time, I debated whether or not it would be worth it. The thought of coming clean in front of my peers was terrifying. I always had hair. It would be disruptive to all of a sudden show up to my peers half bald. So I considered quitting the sport. Not only did I think that they would think of me differently, but I thought that my hair loss would be the only thing they thought of when they thought of me. Eventually, I decided that it wasn't worth it to hide. I had to put my insecurity on display in order to do what I love. I had to leave behind my coping strategy. When an addict who's trying to keep up the facade of being functioning finally has to come clean to their family members and those close to them, it can be a scary process for everyone involved. A nightmare for some, a nightmare for me. So, one winter afternoon, I walked to practice with a hood over my head. But when it came time for me to take it off, I anticipated that my teammates would say, "You did this? What happened to your hair?" When in reality, none of that happened. My teammates continued to lace up their shoes as usual, practice went on as usual, and those walking by the wrestling mats didn't even seem to care. I questioned all of it at first. It was peculiar, because none of it fit with my view of society. The shame and fear from others had followed me from the first grade. That fear that those closest to me would become uncomfortable because of my hair loss eventually began to go away. Day in and day out, I showed up to practice, sometimes with eyebrows and sometimes without them. Our girls' division and I went on to place nationally, and I was named a captain of the team. I even competed in the UFC. Just kidding. So, in hindsight, I remember how ashamed I was of my trichotillomania. But if I had chosen to hide from the truth, I would be less than the person I am today. We must come to terms with the truth, no matter what you're struggling with, and no matter what impulse you have. The compulsion to pull one's hair can stem from a great many factors. Triggers that induce this behavior can include stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, tension, fatigue, and frustration. And these certain day-to-day triggers can evoke the emotions and lead to the behavior. The anxiety of harboring a secret from your community can actually fuel the disorder and hinder your ability to get help. So, we must accept what we're uncomfortable with. Triggers can play a role in so much more than body-focused repetitive behaviors. They also play a role in all impulse control disorders, which include gambling addictions, sex addictions, alcoholism, binge eating disorders, smoking addictions. The list really goes on with that one too. No one is perfect. I'm sure almost everyone here knows that. I know you didn't come here to hear the basics. But it's fundamentally important that we begin accepting one another for our imperfections. If it weren't for the acceptance within my community, I would have never stopped hiding from the truth. I would have always felt alone. Again, I'll mention that 1 in 20 of us suffer from body-focused, repetitive behaviors. And 1 in 10 of us suffer from impulse control disorders. If it's not you, it's someone close to you. And you may not even know it, because so many people are relentless in their pursuit to try to be normal. So next time you see someone with a problem, let them know that it's okay to struggle with something, but they don't need to struggle alone. It's time we stop pretending. It's time we we stop coping with our problems in private. Thank you.